Hello, it's Mike from Inside the Magic, and it's time for our weekly breakdown of Game of Thrones. This was episode 7 of season 6. It was a slower, more thoughtful episode than last week. It mostly dealt with the surprise return of a very popular character called the Hound, Sandor Clegane, who the audience, as far as we knew, we thought he was dead after he battled Brienne a couple seasons back. Turns out he was just left for dead, and this kind of cult leader had picked him up on the hillside there and took him under his wing. Played by Ian McShane, one of my favorite actors from Deadwood, of course. And he has recuperated from his vast injuries, and he's almost kind of starting to turn over a new leaf and become a different person. And just as he's about to do that, just as you think, okay, well, the Hound is going to be kind of a nice guy now, these followers of the Lord of Light come along and threaten his group. And then, as he's off chopping wood, they kill his entire group. And now it seems like the Hound is just gonna have to go back to doing what he's always done and exact some revenge against these people. So very excited to see where that goes. I do feel like that's probably the limit of number of people who we thought were dead who can come back to life this season. After Jon and now the Hound, I feel like let's hold off on resurrecting characters at this point, because after a while it starts to feel like death doesn't really have any meaning, especially on a show where for so long death was so final and permanent, and that was so refreshing for a fantasy series. But now death doesn't feel like as much of a threat, and that kind of felt that way with the Arya scene. When there's an attempt made on Arya's life, I kind of knew as a viewer, like, okay, Arya's not gonna die. I just know that at this point there's too much of the show left to go. Arya's character has come too far along at this point to just be disposed of. So Game of Thrones has kind of come back around to conforming to these narrative conventions that it really skirted for a long time, at least in the first few seasons. Otherwise, we had Jon Snow and Sansa going around trying to build up an army to face the Boltons when they attempt to take back Winterfell, and that kind of felt like an interim story on that plot. I'm interested to see where the Theon and his sister story goes, if they wind up teaming up with Daenerys as they plan. You know, we have all these factions in the show that eventually are going to have to come into conflict with each other, and I guess what they're doing now is they're combining a bunch of these factions, so probably by the end of the series we'll have maybe 3 big factions going up against each other. I feel like Daenerys is going to be one of them, and Jon, and then the Lannisters. And then of course you've got the wild card in the whole story, which is the White Walker army. But yeah, only 3 episodes left to go in this season. I think it's building to something very interesting. Could be a very fun, exciting climax. But we'll see where it goes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. This is Mike from InsideTheMagic.com.